Um, my personal pastoral and academic interest has been the theology of mission. I could talk of contemporary mission in terms of the Missio Dei, justice and peace, reconciliation, the new evangelization, and more. But these are things which go back a long way in our tradition, even if they have modern contemporary presentations of them. However, care for creation has been the most significant new development in the theology of mission in my lifetime. Can we lose the slide for another couple of paragraphs, please, Stephen? Thank you. Care for creation as part of the practice of mission still seems peripheral, a rather specialist, optional interest for those who like that sort of thing. Could we now have the first slide, please, Stephen? Pope Francis has made care for creation firmly part of core Catholic thinking and action through the encyclical Laudato Si and the establishment of September the 1st as a World Day of Prayer for the Care of Creation, joining with contemporary Orthodox practice, as well as uniting us with many of the churches of the Reformation who keep with us a season of creation between the 1st of September and October the 1st. Laudato Si is not the first Catholic statement on environmental questions. There was the Message for World Peace Day 1990, which was offered by Pope St. John Paul II, for instance, and the chapter on the safeguarding the environment in the Compendium of the Social Doctrine of the Church 2004. Both of which are extensively referenced in Laudato Si. But Laudato Si is the first encyclical letter on this topic. In the ranking of church teaching, encyclicals rate towards the top, and thus Laudato Si consciously adds environmental concerns and actions to the body of Catholic social teaching. It calls us to enter into dialogue with men and women of goodwill for the good of our common home. Through this dialogue, it encourages a conversion, a change of heart. Pope Francis himself describes Laudato Si as this lengthy reflection. I offer that both as a true observation and an excuse. I cannot do justice to everything in this wide-ranging encyclical in one short presentation. Please accept what I now offer as a taster. You may learn much more by reading the whole thing. The method of Laudato Si is see, judge, act. This is an inductive way of doing theology, beginning with the experience of things in the world, then seeking to draw upon the resources of Bible and theological traditions and so forth to understand those things, and then to let those reflections lead into concrete actions. We see this with a quick glance at the contents. I know that the print is too small to read, but it allows me to diagrammatically indicate the see, judge, act progress through the document. C. Pope Francis looks carefully at the world and he learns from many sources. He respects the learning of secular experts. He genuinely listens to the science. He warmly quotes beloved ecumenical patriarch Bartholomew of the Orthodox tradition. He quotes the Sufi spiritual writer Ali Al-Karwas. Not least, he shares insights from the local Catholic churches with 20 references to statements from various episcopal conferences. Amongst the things he sees are pollution, climate change, issues with the quality of and access to water, loss of biodiversity, the breakdown of society, and global inequality. This last summer we have seen scientific research which reinforces these observations. Microplastics in fresh water being concentrated in dippers, one of my favourite British birds, and a frighteningly greater than assumed concentration of microplastics in the oceans, added to which have been reports of accelerating decline of Arctic ice and the Antarctic ice shelf, as well as record high temperatures this summer in Arctic Siberia. In the last few days, there have actually been 3 major reports on biodiversity. I'll just draw your attention to one from the WWF. And this shows the human damage that has been done to other inhabitants of this planet. The population sizes of mammals, birds, fish, amphibians, and reptiles has seen an alarming average drop of 68%, 2/3 since 1970. But this report does go on to suggest ways we can do something about it. Back to Pope Francis. Pope Francis reminds us that human beings too are creatures of this world. Therefore, the human environment and the natural environment deteriorate together. We cannot adequately combat environmental degradation unless we attend to the causes related to human and social degradation. In other words, we must hear both the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. If you take one thing from this encyclical, let it be that both and. Hear both the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. Judge. Judge here means employing biblical and theological tools to deepen our understanding of what we've seen. Pope Francis extends Catholic social teaching core principles, such as justice and the common good, and applies them to justice for our common home. Creation is a vital biblical and theological principle. An important recent theme in ecumenical discussions of mission has been justice, peace, and the integrity of creation. Pope Francis both affirms this and extends it with his own insights. He puts forward what he calls the gospel of creation. Neither nature nor the human person are divine. We are not God. Instead, the Pope argues that the human reality is grounded in 3 fundamental and closely intertwined relationships: with God, with our neighbour, and with the earth itself. The ecological crisis is best understood as a sinful rupture of these 3 vital relationships. In the face of this serious crisis, Pope Francis communicates hope. He has a lovely vision, which I really do enjoy. He says, an authentic humanity calling for a new synthesis seems to dwell in the midst of our technological culture, almost unnoticed, like a mist seeping gently beneath a closed door. Will the promise last in spite of everything, with all that is authentic rising up in stubborn resistance? And in a major section, Pope Francis goes on to develop what he calls an integral ecology. You remember the phrase, the integrity of creation. And this integral ecology reforges the relationships between the environment, the economy, society, and culture. Act. The encyclical was itself an action. It was written before the so-called Conference of Parties, the watershed United Nations Conference in Paris, which seriously considered international agreed action on climate change. Laudato Si offered a Catholic perspective, which was certainly appreciated by many delegates, Catholic and non-Catholic. The hope of Paris 2015 has been dulled by subsequent actions of the USA and others in withdrawing from its terms. And many of us felt that the compromise agreements made in Paris then did not actually go far enough. However, the UK is slated to co-host with Italy COP26 in Glasgow. That was due to be in November this year, but because of COVID-19, that has been postponed to November 2021. And this may be an opportunity to get things back on track. Not least, we may have a new and more sympathetic American president. Amongst the specific actions proposed by Pope Francis are progressively replacing fossil fuels, devising stronger and more efficient international institutions. Education is needed in order to develop a new awareness. And an important part of this is spirituality, a spirituality which leads to a conversion, a spirituality which can motivate us to a more passionate concern for the protection of our world. One aspect of mission which has been exercising my mind of late is the question of beauty. Pope Benedict spoke eloquently about the via pulchritudinis, the way of beauty, and the new evangelization. The way of beauty has important resonances in our appreciation of and care for our common home. Pope Francis speaks of beauty 44 times in Laudato Si, and as you can see from the table of contents, a spirituality of beauty tops and tails the encyclical. I will come out of the slideshow here, not because my face is an example of beauty, but I should be clear that we're moving from what Pope Francis has said and more into my response to what he said. I do want to be careful about cultural appropriation, but I also want to affirm that much of the best practices of Christian mission have involved cultural interaction and learning from others. Not least, missionaries have so frequently said about how much they have learned from the peoples to whom they are sent. Many indigenous people have a strong sense of being part of an harmonious natural order, which is beautiful even if threatened. The final document of the recent Synod on the Amazon, under the heading The Cry of the Earth, the Cry of the Poor, spoke of a wounded and deformed beauty. Not simply a beauty to give us nice feelings, but a fragile thing which inspires us with a mission to sustain that God-given beauty and heal its human-caused wounds and deformity. I'm conscious that the Navajo Diné people have the concept of Hojo Nasha, walking in beauty. That's to say, a way of living that is aware of the beauty within us and around us, and in which we act consciously to maintain. I think this is something that modernist and post-industrial cultures would do well to learn from. The title Laudato Si is not Latin, nor is it standard Italian, but it's in the Umbrian dialect and is quoting the poetic prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. This is both an expression of the beauty seen and an action to act within and for that harmony and goodness which is God's gift to us. Let us take joy in God's good gift of creation, and let us commit ourselves to act for the good of all life.